Why is sleep such a struggle for our foster and adopted kiddos?
So many reasons. Okay, so I think first of all, you have to really understand that sleep is incredibly vulnerable. When you really think about the act of falling asleep, it is
Yeah,
a complete and total loss of control.
that's
It
so
is
good.
a surrender to the people around you. It is a trust because to
Yeah.
allow yourself to make that shift, to be completely helpless, to be completely vulnerable, to do all of that, especially for a child who is new in your home, who doesn't know you, who the unfortunate reality is a lot of our kids that come into our homes had really terrible things happen to them in the dark when they were
That's
left
right.
alone for long periods of time at night.
Yeah.
Trigger, 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 trigger. And so for them,
Yes.
the act of surrendering, of the vulnerability of it is so, so, so hard. I think you also
Yeah.
have to really reframe sleep as a separation. A lot of
Mm,
people don't want to think about it as a separation because you're like, well, I'm just down the hall. And yes, that's true. However, if that child is out of your room, that is still a separation for them. So it is
yeah.
it is a trigger, it is vulnerable, it is a separation, and it takes a lot of trust for it to feel peaceful and safe and comfortable. And
Yeah.
sometimes I use the illusion, if you ever traveled, especially internationally, you are just sort of on guard for the first day or two
Yeah.
that you're there. You don't sleep. Nobody hardly ever sleeps well the first night in a hotel. Those types of things, because you just kind of don't know, like, where do I go when I need things? You need time to get your bearings. It's like that
Yeah.
on steroids for kids
Yeah.
just entered your home. They don't know you, they don't know the routines, and you didn't even experience a loss when you traveled. So you add loss of all their safe people, all their safe smells. I mean, your home is like a foreign country. And even though
Right.
in your mind you're like, oh, they're finally safe, they're finally comfortable, to them, that's not what that is
That's right.
at all. And so there are just mountains of triggers, and it takes a very long time for them to understand I am safe. I can let my guard down. I can relax. I can trust people. Um,
Yeah.
Depending on their history and why they've come into care, that can be a really, really hard
That is so, so true. What a fantastic way to frame that and help us to understand. Because right there, that just hit me. Just a reminder. And I'm like, I work in trauma informed everything.
thing. Hmm.
And you to say that, that is so profound. So, understanding that, Allison, where do we as parents need to shift our mindset and even our expectations around sleep?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I always encourage families to do is not to just think my kid should sleep because he's tired, right?
Yeah.
It is so much more than a biological function. Yes, there is physiology, there is biology going on there. And yes, in theory, kids should sleep when they're tired. But I think we have to shift our expectations into understanding that there is so much more, it is so much more complex than just
Yes.
my body needs sleep to survive. There's so much more complexity to it and nuance to it. So if we just look at it as the biological function of sleep and we don't really look at the different pieces of that puzzle, we're not going to serve our kids well, because we are simply going to say, like, hey, you have to sleep, period, because you have to. So if that means you have to cry for an hour first, oh well, because you have to sleep. And that's really missing the mark, because there's such an opportunity for bonding and connection and for the attachment relationship, so much of that to grow and develop and bloom in and around sleep periods, right? So much of those routines of preparing our kids' brains and bodies for sleep, so much of that can be really, really such just an opportunity to love them and connect with them. And my kids, they are never sweeter than during their tuck-ins. Now, granted, you've been here a minute. So, when kids still feel like sleep is very much a threatening thing, they may turn not that way. But what an opportunity to really meet them where they are, and to, rather than coming in with a more punitive, like disciplinary approach, to say, hey, I see that this is hard and I'm with you. And we're on the same team. I think sleep can become such a power struggle for a lot of families. And it's such an incredible opportunity if we can view it this way to really work towards something with your kid instead of against your kid. And to say, okay, what does this need actually, what is this behavior telling me about them, where they're at, what their needs are, and how can I come alongside them as a teammate and encourage them and support them through it as opposed to fighting about it. Because that tends to be the knee jerk reaction is, oh, they just got to learn.
Absolutely.
They just need there's so much like unnecessary discipline that happens
Mhm.
around sleep. And when you can approach it from that compassionate, teammate side of things, it just goes so much better.